there are two or three things to mention, and getting it out there straight away. The first is that I'm announcing today that next year, at the end of my term as Police and Crime Commissioner, the first Police and Crime Commissioner of Essex, I'm going to retire. And I'm sure that may be what most of your questions will be about. But I also want to mention two other things. The first is, of course, I'm just completing my year as the chair of the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, which has been really an exciting and demanding and really fulfilling year. But thirdly, also to point to what is a really important way ahead for policing in Essex. I believe the Chief Constable and I have, over the last couple of years I've worked with him, have been turning around Essex Police and moving it towards a really exciting future. And I'd like to say a little bit about that, because this really is more about the future than the past. So you all got a copy of the statement. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read that. You can pick from that as you wish. The first thing to say is that it's been an immense privilege to be Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex. I had no idea what the role was going to be about. I don't think anybody could possibly have done before we started this journey. I took a bit of persuading. It was a sensible thing to take on. And when I think back, it was 4 years ago now that I was first having those discussions. I didn't know how it would work out. I didn't know even if it was a good idea. But I haven't been elected, and in the run-up to that election, I realised what an opportunity there was, a really very significant opportunity to really try and refocus policing on what matters to everybody across Essex. And it's been, as I say, a privilege to work with Stephen Kavanagh, who I appointed, of course. That was probably the first and probably the most important decision I took during my time as Police and Crime Commissioner, to appoint him as Chief Constable, working with him to address three things, really. I suppose firstly, it's the day-to-day good running of Essex Police, the governance. That's at the heart of what Police and Crime Commissioners are about. Me holding him to account on behalf of everybody who lives in Essex to make sure we get really good policing. It's hard work. It is really hard work, and it takes a skilled team that I've built here, and perhaps I could pay tribute to the team that we have recruited and perhaps developed. I think I played a part in that, to carry out that work, the scrutiny work that goes on day by day to make sure Essex Police are as good as they can be. The second really crucial thing, and it's a journey that has not been very visible to most of you, but is setting the foundations for the strategic future of Essex Police. And I think many of you will know that in September we'll be making major announcements about the estate, about technology, about a whole range of issues, for example, public contact with the police. That's a really important programme, and we're not going to slacken the pace on that. That future, that strategic thinking, frankly, I think have been missing in the past, and it's something that we've had to work very hard to make up the deficit. And the third thing, which I think has been the most fun part, and has brought me into contact with many of you, is getting out and about and trying to rebuild that contact between the police and the public they serve. You know, the many public meetings that I've held, which I think always, I'm just trying to think, I don't think I've ever held a public meeting which hasn't had the police at my side. The whole point is to be able to get the Essex Police and meeting their public, and me hearing that exchange between them. Some of you have been to those meetings, and that's how I understand and know what communities right across Essex, from Newport to Southend, or from Thurrock to Harwich, what they're feeling about crime and policing in their communities. Of course, some of the realities are tough. And we've done this. Wouldn't have been great to do this against a period of expanding budgets, but it hasn't. We've had to do it during a time of reductions in budget, and there's no hint that those aren't going to continue. It looks almost certain that we're going to have to continue to make very significant reductions to Essex Police, and that makes what we're trying to do even more challenging, but actually even more necessary. My only regret is that at a time of plenty in the past, those who were then leading Essex Police and responsible for the governance of it had not laid down those strategic futures that I think should have been done, and we're now doing, but at a more difficult time. So as we think about that, to bring on to a second point, we've launched today a very, very minor revision to a minor but important revision to our police and crime plan. Some of you will have got to know our police and crime plan a bit. We haven't changed it for the first 2 years. This year, the only crime type that was ever mentioned in it was domestic abuse, and I think you all know very well the reasons why we majored on domestic abuse and why we're going to continue to keep that focus. We absolutely have to keep that focus, because while Essex Police has made tremendous progress, it's by no means at the end of the journey. It needs to get to the end of before we're satisfied that we're getting it absolutely right. There's still more to do. But as I've learned through doing this role, things I had no knowledge about before at all, the hidden harms in our societies that are going on, the child abuse, the child sexual exploitation, the human trafficking, the issues of forced marriage, of FGM in our communities. These are things that are all happening behind closed doors, and they're things that do cause some of the greatest harms in our society. We've then got the other, organised criminals and others who are now, using the internet to prey on all of us. Every one of us is a target for fraudsters, and particularly our elderly members of our families and our communities. But those things that happen behind closed doors. So you'll have heard me say before that the front line of policing now really is the front room, and it's very difficult and complex policing to do. There's a bit of a debate running, and I think there's an interview reported in the Times today. The notion of Bob is on the beat, keeping our communities safe. My view is the local policing is absolutely crucial. The notion of Bob is on the beat is an outdated notion. We need expert, skilled detectives, investigators who can investigate online crime, who can attain best evidence from children who've been the victims of sexual abuse, who can work with vulnerable women and men who are victims of domestic abuse. These are skilled activities. They require very skilled and specialist resources, and Bobbies on the beat really don't cut it. If they ever did, of course they were necessary when we didn't have radios and cars and all of those things. So the future is going to be different. We need very highly professional police officers. There'll be fewer of them. They need to engage with their communities in modern ways. Isn't it shocking that you can't report a crime by email to Essex Police? You can't do those things online. The things that we've been doing, our banking transactions that we've been doing for 20 years. I've certainly been using online banking for 17 years to my clear recollection, that we can't do those secure communications with our police. We have to force the pace of that, and we have to modernise and professionalise our police so that we can deal with them in the ways that we want to. It's been great as Police Crime Commissioner to bring a really different way of doing business with this. We've been able, through our office and through imaginative use of a small amount of funds, to really stimulate those wonderful groups and individuals around Essex, and you know them, and you'll work with them, and you'll see many of them who are doing that great work in their communities. We've been able to stimulate that and attract very significant funding into Essex by seed funding small projects that have grown and grown. And that again is the way of the future. It's about communities taking responsibility, working with the police and other agencies, getting police working better with social care, with the health service. And yes, we all know the health service at Essex is immensely challenged, but the health service itself must find time to work with partners to ensure, particularly in the area of mental health, that we're working with those who so frequently are vulnerable to crime and too often get involved in causing crime as well. It's a complex web of partnership working that we absolutely need to sponsor. So I decided that I'm going to stand down next year. No need for, the facts are I'm 64 next year. I was fishing for a compliment, I won't. I'm 64 next year. Sure. Thank you very much. I would love to think that I could bring the energy I brought to this for another 4 years. I think that's wrong. I think this is work for vigorous people in their prime. More particular, I've got a growing family. I've got 3 wonderful grandchildren. When people say they're going to spend time with their wife and families, well, I genuinely am. It was our wedding anniversary yesterday. I've been married 41 years, and we've got 3 grandchildren. My son's a colonel in the army. He's doing an extremely demanding job. We love spending time with them. I have my daughter who teaches in London, has a new baby, I am as committed to my family as I am to my job. I've worked for more than 35 years in the public sector. I had 5 years wonderful working with Goldman Sachs in the commercial sector, which was a privilege and extremely hard work. I think after 40 years I've kind of done my bit. I am going to look on with some envy to those who carry on this work. Essex is really on the brink of some wonderful opportunities. With the devolution debate now going very strongly, there's the opportunity for us in Essex to really transform how we deliver public services. The police must be part of that. I want them to be part of that, and I'm sure that they will be. The opportunities for economic development in Essex, are again now we're on the verge of something that we haven't had for many years, and I hope those who are responsible take that opportunity. In a way, I'd love to be part of it, and I can assure you that taking this decision was extremely difficult. I took the decision in effect over 3 months. I took the decision, let it soak, tested it, went away for a week, and for me it is the right decision, but it's a difficult one because this is an important role. Essex Police has got a major part to contribute to the development of the county. It's got a long way to go. And I'd love to be part of that future, but I'm sure it's right for me to take this decision. I think probably I've said more than enough to get the conversation going. Jan will have organised you, he certainly organises me, about how we're going to do this, but I think I'm very happy to take questions. I'm really in your hands. Perhaps I could also take this opportunity for thanking the media, both the print and the broadcast media in Essex, for taking a really, I think, a terrific interest in what I've been doing. Many of you around the table I've got to know really very well. You've taken a real, we need our challenges and mental health challenges. There aren't going to be enough police officers to do everything, and rather than walking the streets, the focused local activity, working with partners, working with schools, working with businesses, business crime matters. Yes, of course, police need to be connected with their communities. I just really doubt, and I think there's very little evidence that officers walking around communities really do cut it in the way that you're suggesting.
In the past, the conversation about Bobbies on the Beat hasn't been so much about solving crime, it's been about also the public reassurance and people having the opportunity to report crimes because they've seen the police, and the reassurance and the fear of crime have been things that police have been speaking about. Do you think now there just aren't the resources to worry about fear of crime? The officers you have to actually just investigate the crime you've already got. Is that why you don't think Bobbies on the Beat have such a significant role in the future?
There are 2 or 3 things caught up in that. Public confidence, fear of crime, really matter. We absolutely want to get our police thinking, creatively about how to give public confidence, how to deal with that perception of crime. It's remarkable that over the last 15 years, crime in Essex has plummeted, of all sorts. Okay, the last year or two it's kind of stabilised, although most crimes like to affect us continues to fall. Last year, burglaries down over 10%. So crime's come down, but the public perception isn't the same. Public perception is that the crime it has got worse. Public perception and public confidence has dropped off. So clearly the police aren't getting it right. Now, is that solved by officers walking around the streets who are not going to be tackling the harms? They're not going to be responding to crime. They're not going to be investigating things. Are they really going to do that perception, build that perception, or should the police be thinking really creatively about how to spread the message about the reductions in crime, about how the public should contact the police, about what the reality is going on in their communities, and work with communities to make them safer. Fear of crime really matters, perception really matters, but I think we could be much more creative about how we address it.
Terror threat's gone up, so for example officers working in local communities with people in mosques and so on, there's no visibility there and building of contacts. That is going to undermine the potential to have more people on the streets feeding back.
Sally, I think that's exactly what I'm saying, that we need. It's same as burglary. So burglary hasn't reduced because the police have got lots of patrols. They're doing targeted, problem-oriented policing. They know there's a problem. They have a response, a research-based response to it. If we know that there's problems with the mosques, then they have officers whose job it is to get out there, work with the mosques, build that community confidence.
They don't have enough of them, that's what they're saying.
Well, they certainly won't if there are bobbies out on the beat just walking around. We need that targeted local policing, and that has to happen. I completely agree that targeted work must happen. That's not the same as bobbies on the beat. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying local policing doesn't matter. It absolutely matters, but it needs to be targeted on the things that make a difference. Schools work, youth work, working with the integrated offender management that happens in our communities, working with mental health, working with faith groups. Those are the things that will make a difference, not bobbies on the beat.
Does your view clash with the Home Secretary's, where we were always promised more bobbies on the beat and more community policing?
I don't think the Home Secretary has promised that. What she has promised is let police and crime commissioners work out what's going on in their communities and let them take responsibility for it.
On the domestic violence, you said that that's the one area of crime that you put out there in the first police and crime plan. There are still major problems with domestic violence, and there's still major problems with child abuse. There's countless IPCC investigations into Essex Police at the moment regarding the child abuse. Do you worry that you're leaving the job half done, that you've highlighted the problem but you haven't come up with the solution, and by leaving, the next crime commissioner might have different priorities and it might just be a problem highlighted but not solved?
It won't be solved. We won't have finished the work by the time I retire next May, Adam. That's clear. But what we have done, and remember those IPCC referrals for child abuse, for example, all referred by Essex Police. You know, we've introduced a culture whereby Essex Police is taking the initiative in being open and transparent about the problems it uncovers. So yes, there's going to be, the job definitely won't be done. It won't be done, I don't think it'll be done for 5 years. Certainly the estate's transformation programme is probably a 10-year programme rather than a 5-year programme, as you'll hear more in September. But if you don't start, you never start, and so we have to get going. I never imagined, in fact, the Chief Constable and I, when we sat down, Stephen Kavanagh, soon after his appointment, and we sat down to plan what was really important, what we should be focusing on, we both recognised at that stage this work won't be done by the time we probably both go. The time of my departure is known. Stephen Kavanagh pledged to give at least 4 years to this role, so he'll have at least a year further beyond me. The work definitely won't be done, but we have to set those foundations. You have to build foundations before you can build the house. But I think we're already seeing change. Some of it's slower than I'd like, of course it is, but that change is happening.
You've been really vocal in criticising the police when they've gone wrong and failures. We've had the IPCC involved, we've had the Goldfinger fiasco, we've had domestic violence failings, we've had CEOP and the failure to act on child abusers. We've had all of that. Do you think overall the quality of policing has gone down? They've missed a murder under their nose. They've done things that have been monumentally bad in terms of standards of policing overall. What is your take on the standards and quality of policing now, especially when older officers are being forced to go?
Nobody's been forced to go to my but not in Essex though. So you know, and some of your language is not language I would use. Have I been challenging of Essex Police? Yes, of course I have. As has the Chief Constable. You know, he is being every bit as challenging as I am. Is the force as fully professional as I would, or he would want it to be, or indeed Essex Police officers themselves want to be? No, it's not. Is that something that's, what's the root cause of that? I think it goes back a long time. You know, the failure to train detectives, the failure to give the specialist training that you need for those in child abuse investigations and others. That goes back many years, where the focus was, let's get uniformed bobbies on the beat. Look at the consequences. You know, we need a specialist, highly professional police force. Could Essex Police be doing better? It is doing better. It's got a way to go.
No.
It's got a way to go. I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think the change, I think we've got lots of really good officers joining Essex Police. We've got really great leadership at the top. I think we're now having middle managers who are refining their confidence as middle managers and are being encouraged to develop the skills to do it really well.
In terms of the sort of between now and May, there perhaps two concerns you might have. One, that you might be seen as a bit lamed up because people know that you're going. Alternative, maybe that you'll be the full guy. You can bring in the tough decisions about the states and the future of policing, knowing that you don't have to fight an election in May. Are either of those concerns for you? Yeah,
they are concerns actually. I thought about both the issues and I had to think it through quite carefully. One of the advice, you know, I'm probably the least effective politician in Essex. You know, I haven't got a political background, and a lot of people said, "Oh, you need to keep your powder dry. Don't tell anybody what you're thinking." But you know, everything I've done in this office has been open and transparent. We have hidden nothing. I couldn't have been clearer with all of you about the issues. For me to go forward not letting you know that I've taken this decision would just be wrong. It's just not how I do things. Do I think I'm a lame duck? Absolutely not, because remember, you know, I've got those executive powers up till the last day. It's a very curious role, this role. We're still getting used to it, and I think at a national level, I think actually as a group of journalists, you probably understand this role far better than the national journalists. That's my experience, certainly as chair of the APCC. You know, the national journalists still based in London don't really get what PCCs are about. So I'll have that power up to the last day, and question for those who are standing their view on it. And I would want to see somebody who's prepared to take those tough decisions, as I've taken year by year.
Nick, can I just take you down to Thurrock for a minute? Over the last three, funny you're deciding to retire now. Over the last 3 weeks, day in, day out, people in Thurrock have been saying to me, what is going on in our borough? And I think my answer on my question would be, what you've done is turn the police into a fire service, and the fear of crime, the perception of violent crime, from arson to attempt murder to large disturbance in Tilbury, you know, the people are very, very concerned that your legacy is turning the police force into a fire service. And by the way, Bobby and the Beat found the Yorkshire Ripper.
Well, I don't accept that what we have done has turned the police into a fire service. In fact, a lot of the things that we're doing absolutely are not that. We've been devoting very large amounts of resource from, if you like, response work into those specialist areas of child abuse and domestic abuse. We've had to do that. We've built up increasingly large online investigation team. They don't always get it right. You've heard an example when they didn't, but they get a lot more right than goes wrong. I think in Thurrock you've got some great officers doing some really good work. You've still got a very good team of PCSOs doing some extremely effective work. Do you have challenges? Yes, of course we have challenges. And when when we have perhaps a string of robberies or a string of violent incidents, it's very easy to imagine that it's all going to hell in a handcart. It's not, and you look at the facts, speak for themselves. The increases in crime have been the reporting of serious sexual offences, and thank God people are now reporting those, of domestic violence, and thank goodness people again are reporting those. Is there occasional violence? Yes, of course, there always has been, and there always will be, Michael. They're manifold, aren't they? There have been many failures of policing across the country over the last 30 years. In every case, there was also a failure of governance. For every chief constable who got it wrong, there was a police authority who let them get it wrong. And we cannot go back to those days. We must have effective governance where there's a professional. It's not just me. This is a professional staff. My office, which was still running at about the same cost as the police authority. It's probably increased just slightly because we've now all the commissioning work that we have to do with the money we've been given by government. But we now have a really professional staff who day by day are looking into the entrails of what Essex Police are doing. And